Welcome back to another episode of Cozypreneur. If you are a teacher or a former teacher, this episode is going to be for you, especially if you are running a business and feeling overwhelmed by marketing. So the good news is that you already know how to market. You were doing it in your classroom every single day when you were convincing your kids that learning is fun and important, right? You gamified fractions. You made that fun. And now we're going to think about how can you transfer that to marketing. So let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of the Cozypreneur podcast. If this is your first time listening, Cozypreneur is all about helping you make money and work with the dreamiest of clients. So grab your beverage, get your cozy socks on, and let's dive in. There are a lot of different teaching skills that you have that directly translate to marketing and selling your work. So curriculum design, communication, classroom management, all of those are really important skills when it comes to running a business. In fact, I say this all of the time that I think running my business is actually easier than being a teacher because I have so much flexibility in my schedule. I can decide how much work I want to take on, and I'm working way less. And I still work every day, but I just was working a ridiculous amount when I was teaching. And so what are some of those skills? The first one is curriculum planning. So if you are somebody who has ever created a unit plan or even looked at a unit plan, right, that's going to be the same thing as your marketing campaign. And so when you think about your marketing campaign, that's going to be like the big picture. And then every piece of content that you make, your emails, your posts, those are going to be like your individual lessons. Just like in teaching, you want to start with the end goal, right? So, in the classroom, it's going to look like this is an objective. Students will be able to XYZ, right? In marketing, it's what do you want your customers to do? What do you want your audience members to do? And then what you're going to do is the same thing you would do in a classroom. You're going to plan backwards. Okay, I know what the goal is. So now how can I plan backwards? And you're going to break this whole big idea, this whole story that you have that's going to take people through your marketing campaign, and you're going to break it into bite-sized lessons that build on each other. If you didn't listen to the mini series on messaging, which were all the episodes that came out in June, this really talks about like, how do you take your marketing campaign? How do you take your messaging framework and break it into bite-sized little pieces? You're doing the same thing, right? You don't teach everything about fractions in one day in the classroom, like you break it into bite-sized lessons. The other piece too, when you're thinking about curriculum, right? You don't just teach things one time and in one way. Depending on what kids are in front of you, you are going to be using video or songs or, group projects or, stations, like depending on what age group. You can tell I taught second grade. I'm like centers, read alouds. But when you're thinking about your marketing, people need different modalities, right? Some people are going to need examples. Some people are going to need visuals. Actually, most people are going to need repetition, right? They're going to need to hear the same thing multiple times in different ways. Just like teaching, right? You're saying the same thing multiple ways. You're creating connections for people. That's also what you're doing in your marketing. You're creating connections for people. You are spelling it out for people. And then you're using assessments, right? You're maybe not, maybe it doesn't look like an exit ticket in your classroom, but it looks like asking your clients for feedback. It looks like seeing which emails got opened or clicked on. And you're assessing along the way, what's working? What do I need to talk more about? What's resonating? And going deeper into what's working, right? And kind of taking a step away from what's not working. It's kind of the same thing that you do in your classroom, right? It's just a different subject matter. You're talking about your offer versus talking about what the lesson content actually is. And there's a lot of other things that teachers are great at, like scaffolding. Scaffolding is the idea that you're taking something really complex and you are breaking it down so somebody actually understands it, which is exactly what your content needs to do. You're taking this thing that you are an expert in and you are scaffolding it for your audience. They are not experts. And so you are breaking it down for them in a way that makes sense for them, right? The other piece is differentiation, right? Not everybody learns the same. Not everybody buys the same. So how can you speak to people who are different kinds of buyers, right? So you have your people who care more about what the results are going to be. You have your people who care more about what the process is going to be. You have people that just want to know how they're going to feel through this whole process and how you're going to help them feel better. And you have people who just want to know, are you somebody who works with integrity? Are you somebody that they can trust? And so knowing that your audience has different types of people and being able to differentiate your content for different types of people, right? Adjust your content, that's going to be huge for you. Then you've got storytelling. Whether you taught kindergarten or you teach college students, you know the power of a good story. Stories make things stick. And so the more you can incorporate storytelling, again, I'm going to have to say, if you didn't listen to the Showing Up with Clarity series in June, go back to those episodes, because there's an overarching story in your business, and that's the story that you are telling. And that story is what's going to make your message stick, what's going to have people remember you. And then you also are great at pacing. Pacing is the idea of like, hey, are we sick of this? Is it time to move forward? Is it time to talk about something else? Or actually, like, I feel like people haven't had enough time to really absorb this message. So maybe I'm going to take some time to like go deeper into it. Or maybe I've been hearing this one thing over and over and over again, so I'm going to incorporate it into my next week's email. And so that's kind of the idea, right? And if you were a teacher, you know this, right? You're teaching this unit, you still have like a few more lessons left, but it's just like dragging. Like it's dragging for you, it's dragging for the students. You're probably going to switch it up, right? Like you might be like, you know what, we'll do these lessons in a different way at a different time. I'm just going to move to a new unit because they need something else. Like this is bringing down the vibes. And so it's the same thing, right? Like if you are showing up and you're sick of talking about, you know, your offer and what it does, and you're like, I've been saying the same things, like what's a different lens you can take? How can you differentiate this content? How can you adapt it so that it doesn't feel like you are slogging through your marketing, right? So this idea of pacing is something teachers are also good. I kind of already talked about this, but this idea of adaptability, right? Like you as a teacher know how to read a room. You know when things just need to stop and reset. Sometimes you're going to have a snow day. Sometimes you're going to get sick. Sometimes you need to throw in some sub plans, and that's okay. Like it's okay to adjust inside your business. That's actually what makes you a really great business owner, is being able to have that adaptability that is just so important in a classroom. Like you can't be in a classroom and not adapt, because things happen all of the time, whether it's behavior, whether it's field day, whether it's picture day, right? Like there's so many things you never get through the lesson that you actually want to get through. And it can be the same in marketing, right? Like you are getting super busy, so you have to adjust your plan. You don't actually have time to do all of these things. So the other piece of this too is that your classroom management skills are community building skills. Your classroom management skills is all about communication. It is all about setting boundaries. It's all about setting expectations, right? You do it with the kids. You do it with the parents. You know exactly, right? That's the first 6 weeks of school. You're talking about routines. You're building those expectations. You're doing the same thing with your audience, right? You are building expectations for them. You are showing them what to expect, and you are managing their energy, especially if you run a group program or you run a membership, right? Like you have those facilitation skills to really be able to listen to all the voices in the room, really make sure there's not one voice dominating, making sure that, hey, even if you don't like unmuting yourself and talking on Zoom, like, are there other options for people to participate? What are the different like learning styles in your group? How can you best improve it, right? There's so much that teachers are good at. And I think that it's so sad because I think I felt this way when I left, where I was like, oh, what am I supposed to do with my life? I have no skills besides teaching. And I think that there's this messaging inside schools where they're kind of like, well, you're just a teacher. And like, you don't realize that you actually have so many great skills that make you such a good business owner. I think like one of those is like being able to handle pushback, being able to handle people who are showing up to your Zoom calls and looking bored. Like, you know how to handle that. You know how to handle that because you had a kid who would sit under your table. No, that was me. And talk about how much he hates school every day, right? So how do you handle that without getting so emotionally invested in something of like, oh, they hurt my feelings, right? Like, no, like, it's not about you. They're just having a bad day, and that's okay. Like, I will check in with them when I have a chance to check in with them, but I'm moving the whole group forward. And so a lot of what you do too is like making sure that you're holding space for learning. So if people have questions and adapting, like, I think one of the things that I do inside Copy Classroom, like, you can submit your copy for review, but the type of feedback that I give is going to be different for different people. And it's also going to change depending how long people have been in the membership. Like, at first, I'm really teaching them about like structure and form, and you're probably getting a Loom video with a lot of notes. And then by the time people have been in the membership for a while, they understand the type of feedback that I'm giving, they understand the framework. And so my feedback is a lot more nitpicky, right? It's a lot more like, hey, what if you add this sentence here? And that just comes from knowing my people, knowing what they need, and understanding like, how can I best support them? What is the type of feedback that they need in this moment to like help achieve their goals? And so that is something that teachers are awesome at. And it's really something that's missing from the online space of people who are doing coaching and don't have that education background, people who are creating courses and don't have that background. Like, it gives you a really big advantage. And I think that because teachers are so disrespected in the public school systems, that a lot of teachers don't see their value and don't see like, hey, I'm actually really good at all of this stuff. Basically, you are already great at motivating people. You are great at leading people. And now you're just doing the same things in a different context, right? Instead of your students, you are talking to usually adults, right? You are selling to adults, but the ideas are still the same. So let's say you want to do a back to school or a fall campaign. Here's how you can use your teaching brain. Here's a simple framework. Think about your objective. What do you want your audience to do at the end? Like, what's your call to action, right? What is the big goal behind it? Then you're going to think about your key takeaways. What do they need to understand to be ready to join this offer? And so this is really where you want to dig into your messaging, but it's basically like, what are things that you hear from your audience? What's holding them back? What's going on? What are they struggling with, right? What are some of those key takeaways that you want them to really take away from reading your content? Then you can really start to sequence things, right? So what do you want to put in your first email, your second email, your third email? Just go listen to the Showing Up with Clarity series, because that will help you sequence. But it's kind of the same thing, right? Where like, you really have to think about, how are you building on prior knowledge, right? Like, in teaching, you have to think about what's the background knowledge that they need to be successful, and you need to make sure that they have that background knowledge. You have to build that background knowledge. And so it's kind of the same thing when you are talking to your audience, is like, hey, are they thinking specific thoughts that are holding them back? Then you can think about assessment, right? So this is really like, how do I know what's landing? How do I know what's not landing? What data am I looking at? And as a teacher, I know that you know that the data is not only numbers. Data can also be street data. I forget who the authors are to that book, but street data is essentially the idea that conversations that you have are great data, right? Observations that you make are great data. It's not just about like emails and click-through rates. When you are actually talking to your people and you are learning from them, that is good data. And then finally, you have your differentiation, which is how can you say it in different ways to reach more people? So those are your different modalities. You know, for me, I have the podcast, I have the email, I have my website, I have my membership. There's a lot of different ways that you can engage with my brand and work on your messaging and work on your copywriting. And in all of those places, I'm talking about the same things. I talk about the same thing in my membership that I talk about in this podcast, but it's a different level of support. It's a different perspective. It's saying the same thing in different ways with different levels of depth. If you are feeling like marketing sucks and you dread marketing, then just remember that you already know a lot of these skills, right? you already have done so many of these skills, and so much of this is transferable, right? If you're struggling with marketing, talking about your offer, like, just remember that marketing is basically getting somebody to solve a problem that they are maybe not super excited about solving, but it is something that they need, right? And that's the same thing you're doing when you're teaching kids how to read. They are not excited about it. In fact, like, a lot of kids are really frustrated because reading is hard when you don't know how to read. And your job is to get them excited about it and to feel confident about it and to, solve that problem for them. And you're just doing the same thing in marketing. And so don't feel like you have to leave your teacher identity behind to be good at marketing. Just remember, in the classroom, you're strategic, you're adaptable, you're empathetic, and bringing those skills into digital marketing space, it's going to do wonders for your business. That is what I will leave you with. You already know how to guide other people. You already know how to help people get really good transformations. And so all you're doing in your marketing is guiding people with intention to help them get the transformation that they're looking for. So with that, I hope that my teacher friends enjoyed this teacher special episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you can think of other ways that teaching is connected to marketing, let me know, because this is a topic that I like to brainstorm and nerd out on a little bit. So with that, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to rate and review if you like the podcast. It helps more people find us. And until next time. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate and leave a review on your preferred listening platform. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe for weekly episodes about how to make money and work with the dreamiest of clients without having to get dressed in the morning. Make sure to check out the show notes down below, and I'll see you in the next episode.